brilliant, right? Let's see. Uh,
Yeah,
Perfect. We are now
yes,
rolling. So, welcome to Coffee for Future, our first episode in 2023. And this is Dimitris. So, I'm very happy to bring you here in First for Future and to talk to you about algae and hydrogen. And I give you a word to please introduce yourself.
yes, perfect. Thank you very much, first of all. And it's it will be quite interesting to show how these two concepts, basically, and these two economies, in some sort, algae and hydrogen, they are connected. But first, I think it would be better to introduce myself so that we have like a better understanding of how we are the ones who are going to connect these two parts. So my name is Dimitris Simeonidis. I'm originally from Greece, as it might be a bit evident, and I my background originally is electrical and computer engineering. I have basically specialized in energy and energy economics, and mostly in the renewable energy part. I was mostly interested in a more holistic approach of the energy transition. And that's why I wanted to see the social, economic, and then environmental um, pros and cons of every renewable energy technology. That's why I entered later on the engineering and policy analysis master's degree, where I gained a more public policy analysis and consultancy expertise. And that's where I also did a lot of projects on green hydrogen, on the geopolitics of green hydrogen supply chains, and also on carbon negative supply chains, including carbon capture and storage. That's also where algae kicks in. We did a lot of a project like this with Airbus and Embraer. And currently, I'm working as an energy market analyst for Vasa ETT. I'm also a project manager for a Forest for Future, and that's also where I'm collaborating with Vesela, and I am very happy to connect our two basically scientific fields to work towards regenerative economy and trying to reverse it, or at least mitigate climate change.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dimitris. And so, like most of our viewers know that we are working in the field of desert greening and how this actually goes back to climate change. But let's try to somehow bring in what it means for desert greening. And this is what I try to connect the dots. What it means for desert greening using algae and especially using hydrogen. Because at the first, like you remember a year ago when we first met,
Yeah.
I was really fascinated with your idea about hydrogen and like really refurbishing the cars. I remember that thought because I was really taken aback, like wow, because if we look at our world and we have to look at it as a single whole thing because this is what it is, we can't separate it. So there is no future for electric car in that sense that it takes over the world because it's like 8 billion of us and there are so many cars and we'll just like have to mine the shit out of our planet and totally destroy it.
Yeah.
So no, like hydrogen, especially like this refurbished car, that is something that just blowed my mind because we have so many old cars and all developing countries are driving old cars, like not secondhand, but like fifth hand cars from wherever. And this is a huge potential. So this really was like something that struck my head, like something, how can you do this? How can you make this like not even like one third of the world, but more like two-thirds of the world um, drive on renewable resources because there is no way that they can drive electric cars, not in the near future, not in 10 or 20 years. So this is something that really struck me. And I remember our talk and you were talking about your startup from Netherlands, right? It was from Netherlands.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I can basically elaborate a bit also on that, and
Yeah,
I can
please.
use like a recent news piece basically from Greece. Now that we are talking about the viability of electric vehicles. Already, a lot of companies that are operating electric bicycles, essentially electric motorbikes in Greece for rental, they are either closing doors, moving away from the field, and that they are trying to claim that it's merely because of vandalism events, which of course happen with these bicycles or motorbikes for rent, but it's not the sole reason for that. And there is this claim that this thing can be replicated, for example, to India, and all of India can work on electric bicycles and motorbikes. But this is a part that, at least as we see, it's not very viable. Already we're seeing this. So smart mobility is recording already several losses, and we see hydrogen getting some wins on that. And of course, we see that there is this opportunity for the field of vehicles, at least, because we are talking, of course, about electric vehicles penetrating all of the markets, but who is able to pay for them, and how much are state actors able to subsidize. So that is a very interesting topic to discuss, and I definitely don't share the notion that electric vehicles, are the sole way to decarbonize the whole market. And we have also to think that these people from the global south that they cannot afford these electric vehicles are the ones who are going to get hit worse from climate change, and we don't seem to care about them if we don't help them go towards that way. And that's how our startup Hybronium was basically initiated.
Exactly, and then the other part of the equation was that they would suffer the most because the lithium mines would be actually in the developing countries, and these would be the people who would be then, like, of course, being having their natural parks and reserves, like in Serbia, being totally destroyed, because this is what is currently happening in Serbia. And like there is Rio Tinto and the whole Europe bloc, actually, the whole European Union, together with Germany, like pushing very strong for the lithium mining to start in Serbia, and actually is one of the natural parks. Devastating. The consequences of that starting would be devastating for nature, for protected species, for biodiversity. Not talking for the people that would have to be removed from there. Well, of course, there are lithium reserves in Germany. Why don't you dig there? So this is like a very big part of the equation that a lot of the, let's say, supporters of electric vehicles don't want to see, that you will have to destroy the environment in already very climate change not safe environments, because these developing countries, they're the ones that are the most hit with the climate change, and they're the ones that are least to be blamed for climate change, so to say. And now if we prolong this with lithium mining in those countries, you're basically pushing them even further into destruction mode. So this was like really that was like ringing in my head when you said, like, okay, we can refurbish the cars for hydrogen. And then I remember for some months I was just trying to think, how can I support you? Because this is like something that has nothing to do with my background, because I'm like a desert greening scientist. This is I studied, like, yeah, arid environments, agriculture and arid environments, engineering of dams. Like, this is like really, there was no connection, except that I did that at the Transportation Institute in Vienna. And this is
Yeah.
where I was thinking, okay, trying to connect the dots, and okay, so maybe we can do this somehow with deserts, and how do you produce hydrogen? And then we came up with algae, and then you actually, I think, brought the idea that we should have this dark fermentation of algae, and we can use that as soil amendments. And I think this is where we started, right?
Yes, this was a good way to basically connect our two fields of expertise, and also to generate results that are both of our interests. For example, biohydrogen is something of my interest, as it relates a lot to my notion that it is a very important component for the energy transition, but it's also connected to your expertise, and because it's also a way to generate biostimulants, soil amendments, and like place a small rock, let's say, on the whole fight towards desert greening. I want also to make a small parenthesis on the part of the effects of lithium mining and of minerals and metals mining towards batteries creation, because the environmental disaster is also only one part. We have also societal impacts, which relocation is the small problem, let's say, because there have been allegations over child labor in countries such as Bolivia, for example.
Yeah.
So that is also a very important issue to take into consideration. But yes, closing the parenthesis, I would like to say that yeah, that's basically our point of connection, the dark fermentation project that we want to move forward, because I see a lot of potential. Exactly for the benefits we mentioned of biohydrogen versus other fuels,
Yeah.
and because of its very big relevance also to your field, but also to another very important aspect of the global south, which is clean cooking, because it's also a way to generate biomethane, which facilitates that transition in this these countries, basically.
Yeah, and especially when you look at now, and more, I'm looking at the air pollution map and what is happening exactly because of wood burning and such. So it's really, how do I say, it was so natural, like how we connected and how this bridge then became one project, and we already published for an Indian journal, for an Indian conference. We published the algae dark fermentation and soil amendments. And you actually know the whole title because in the other book chapter writing, so I completely
Yeah.
forgot the title. Sorry. You
Yeah,
can tell
it's
it.
yeah, it's basically like if we're basically assessing the potential of dark fermentation for the production of biohydrogen and other byproducts for the global south, and it was for the international conference on circular economy, which was held in Mumbai, and it
Yes.
was a very good way to connect with an economy and a region specifically that through my work at the TPM Resilience Lab at TU Delft, I have seen that it's going to face the worst effects again of climate change, because it's essentially going to sink the whole city if we don't act now, and it's a very important. That's why I was very much moved, and I wanted really to contribute to helping mitigate the effects of climate change in this region.
No. And then now our current work, like our current book chapter that we're writing, is on harvesting the agricultural nutrient runoff with algae and then using them for soil amendment. So it's again like kind of looping everything into this like circular, because it is circular, because our environment is circular, and sooner and faster the people start looking into our economy and into all our basically the streams, and not just waste streams, but like into everything that we do in a circular motion, we are faster. This is my belief. We are only going to be faster into this regenerative world, because we cannot live sustainably, because maintaining this state now is just, it's not good. It's not good for anyone. So we have to go beyond sustainability, and we have to go into regeneration. And this is what hydrogen would allow us to do. And this is what actually algae and implementing algae on different levels would allow us to attain, not only in this like transportation mode and having different fuel source for hydrogen, but also having supreme soil amendments for plants that are now facing challenges. And desert environments are, like, people usually think, oh yeah, well, deserts can only spread when the climate change comes, but that is not really truth, because desert environments are very fragile, and they are very much alive, and there are so many species of plants and animals and vertebrates, and like there are so many different species of animals but in the desert. So they're all super fragile concerning climate change, because what little rain they used to have and what they are already accustomed to, they don't get anymore. So this is where it's very important that we act fast and act now if we want to protect this biodiversity and these fragile ecosystems. And this is what we are trying to do at the moment.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's really cool how we came to this partnership and like collaboration that we're working on now. Um,
yeah, but I think it's also for me it was a great opportunity to learn more about the regenerative economy and about circularity, about how how many ways there are to valorize these streams of biomass of any kind, and there are so many ways, and most of the economies have not incorporated, not even, let's say, 1% of them. And indeed, regarding the arid and semi-arid environments, another point is that these environments, if they they're also fragile, but also if they're lost, it's not losing a small part of your productivity, it's losing everything. And for these countries, which are already major importers of many agricultural products, this can mean devastation of the whole economy, as we have seen in like how fragile these economies are to disruptions in the food market, in the food supply chain. We have seen this in Egypt. We have seen this in many African countries, especially now with the crisis that was due to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
yeah, even if we look at it, just like the newest desert is the Aral Sea Desert, because this is the newest. This is classified as desert, and it is the newest, and it's all solely due to human factor. Like this is humans not having like practicing super bad agricultural practices and irrigation practices, and just not being aware of, what am I doing with my soil and how am I treating my soil and what am I growing and should this be grown here, or you know but it's a heritage from an era that had like the whole. I'm not just saying like the Soviet era was bad, because this is like definitely the heritage from the Soviet era, but it's the whole this baby boom generation. The whole generation itself in the world was bad for the environment, because didn't have that consciousness. And I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anyone, but that is true. They didn't have any awareness of, okay, money does not grow on the trees. Like, yeah, this is what they were just collecting money, but what it did to the other parts of the world, that was never of any concern. And this is why, like, now we have this very very poorly managed dam systems all across the arid regions. And this is like the very niche of my expertise, are the dams in the deserts, and what is happening with them, and how they're just not being managed and just being destroyed and left to their own menaces or nemesis, and just let to burst, and nobody's taking care of them, because they were just put there without engaging the local stakeholders, without engaging the local people, without any plans of the environmental structure and environmental sustainability of the region and what it does to the river. And yeah, so but this is something that is also a part of one of our projects, is the Central Asia.
Yeah, yeah. Central Asia is a very I don't know, understudied, let's say, region on that side, and there is a need for everything from research into what kind of regenerative paths are there. How can we do this in a more in a less, let's say, energy and resource intensive way? How can we reverse the effects of climate change there, or kind of try to stop the whole process? And to the part of conveying this research to the local stakeholders, to the part of consulting them, and to the part of implementing the project. So it's not just about going there and doing a project and then leaving. It's changing the whole structure, and that is something that needs systems thinking and that needs people to take it from scratch and try to do this as fast as possible at the same time, which is extremely challenging, but it's what must be done.
Yeah. And this is where your expertise with policy comes in very handy, and especially with networking. And
Yeah, and also with policy entrepreneurship, let's say, which is basically finding the policy window of opportunity to try to streamline everything as fast as possible. And I believe that now it's, let's say, one of these windows of opportunity.
perfect. I'm so happy we had this chat, and stay tuned, everyone. We're just gonna have more and more, and we're gonna dig deeper into each of the subjects. Especially, write us comments below what you're mostly interested in, and we'll try to talk more about it in our next podcast next week. And we'll try to publish one each week for the next year. So let's see how this goes. Um, Thank you so much, buddy.
Yeah, thank you also. And yes, let's see. I hope that we can cover as many topics as possible so that, we try to map the whole system. And I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
yeah, me too. Actually, I love these conversations with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so good night. It's very late in Greece, and it's not so early here. I think.
Yeah, I think it's also it's also late there. So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, next time maybe a bit earlier with coffee also.
Yes. Okay. Good night.
Yeah, good night. Bye bye.
Ciao.